Sure shot, baby. So, good day, everyone. We're here for another episode of the DVD show. So, for today, we have one of the most lethal point guards in the PBA when he during his time, but then now he has no team, sadly. But when during his prime with Meralco, Ginebra, and all these teams, he was one of the best point guards in the league. And I'll now welcome to the DVD show, Saul Mercado. Thank you for joining me here on my podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. I like that DVD. I like
Yeah.
that a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. So to start things off, I just wanted to ask, how have you been doing during this whole quarantine? It's been over a year already, and what are some of the things you have done? And yeah, how has the family been? All those things.
Yeah, I mean, it was rough at first. I think for everybody adjusting to something that we've never been a part of, right? So when we first went into lockdown, it was pretty hard, but just try to make myself productive. I'm really not a person that is good at just staying in one place, so it taught me a lot. I had to learn and grow in an environment that I, didn't want to just stay put in. But it was the safest thing to do. But luckily, I had a guy named Simon Enciso.
Oh yeah,
You probably know him. He also
yeah.
plays in the PBA. He was living with me
Okay.
at the time, and so we were able to just kind of get workouts in and do some home workouts and hold each other accountable. And so I wasn't super lonely. We found things to do, played video games and found a little routine. We'd wake up, do our workout. We would find something to cook. That's, during the pandemic is when I started learning to cook, went on YouTube
Yeah.
and taught myself how to cook and actually found some fun in that. And then after that, I had went home. This was November last year. November last year, I went home because my sister had a baby, so I wanted
Oh.
to, meet the baby and all that. And so I flew home, and I'm from California, Sacramento,
Mhm.
California,
Yeah.
and I have to my sisters live in Texas. So
Mm.
I flew to California, stayed there for 3 days, and then I flew to Texas with my mom. So we got there, and it was towards the time of Thanksgiving. And I got there, and everything was still on lockdown. And I was taking all the safety measures, wearing my mask and face shield on the flight back home and everything. And so when I was in Texas, I started to feel really, really tired, and I thought it was just jet lag. And then I started getting sick, and sure enough, I got tested, and I was positive for COVID, and it was the worst experience of my life because once I was positive and I was in the room, and I really thought I was going to die. I couldn't breathe. I ended up fainting, and I was really, really going through it. And my mom was taking care of me. Um, of course, as a mom, she's just going to take care of me. So she ended up getting it. And then everybody
Oh.
got tested that was in the household, and everybody was positive. So we
Oh.
had a we had a household full of positive COVID parties, and it was a pretty frightening experience. But we got through it, and I was able to make it back here to the Philippines before Christmas and celebrate Christmas with people that I consider family out here, like you mentioned before, Gabe and Joe. They were on his show before, so those are guys I consider my brothers, and so we were able to spend Christmas with them here at my house. And other than that, man, I just been trying to stay in shape, stay ready. Started to get into some business ventures and um, just try and be productive as possible while staying safe.
Yeah. How about with the whole COVID experience? Because others have like different ways to bounce back from it. Because everyone, like, if everyone has a different coping mechanism on how to still, keep sane and still go through with their life despite the hurdles that occurred. But for you, how did you overcome that struggle? Because yeah, it's not only physically but mentally, it's also draining when you're sick, and it's very major and grave in that instance.
Yeah, I mean, during that time, you're really in survival mode. It was really, really bad, and I would probably say for about 7 to 10 days, it was really, really bad. So, you're really just in bed trying to rest, because you have no energy. You're just trying to rest, and so I was sleeping a lot. Was watching TV shows on my iPad and watching the PBA games during that time. I was getting up, staying up late and waking up early in the morning to watch PBA games in the bubble. And yeah, I mean, I was really just trying to reserve my energy during that time. You're really just bedridden and trying to eat healthy, drinking lots of water. I was taking melatonin at nighttime to try and help me sleep throughout the whole night. So those are some of the things that really helped me. But I didn't really take any medicine. I was just trying to drink
Oh,
lots of water, eat lots of fruit and vegetables, trying to strengthen my immune system, and that was it.
yeah. Then eventually it just wore off after like 1.5 weeks to 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you wake up. I was waking up every day hoping that I felt better when I woke up, and it just would not go away. Lingering headache, lingering, the sickness, and then one day I just kind of woke up and felt a little better, and it just gradually got better, and then I felt normal. Probably after 14 to 18 days.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of long, and it's really tough for you. We're not doing anything for that long, and now it's
Yeah,
kind of tough still because we're still at home most of the time. But that's worse because like you're in your bed for two to 2.5 weeks.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You also mentioned that you were tuning into the bubble, and that was the last time there was PBA. It's been like since December of 2020. But how for you was is it also tough to watch them since you feel like you should be there? Of course, you have like the confidence in yourself to be in there, and because you're still one of the great players here in the Philippines. So was it tougher for you or not really?
Um, it was tough. I actually, I had considered, when I was back home, I considered retirement. I considered,
Oh,
hanging it up, and I talked to some people, and I still feel when I was watching uh, the games, I was watching, TNT Ginebra,
mhm.
specifically because Simon, I would call him and give him some pointers and what I've
Yeah,
seen from his game, and just trying to help him out. And then obviously watching Joe and Gabe during the bubble. But as I was watching, I just felt like I had so much more to offer to some of these teams. A
yeah,
majority of these teams, like I just feel like if I walked away now, um, it would be too soon. I would feel like I still had a lot to offer. And whether that's knowledge, skill, whatever it is, I still feel like I still have so much more. So it was tough at times, but obviously there was nothing I could do. I was at home, and they're in a bubble. So I was just kind of looking at a perspective to learn and try and give knowledge to my friends and people I consider my brothers from outside perspective watching the game.
yeah. I agree also with that sentiment that you could still contribute a ton of things to the teams because I mean not to put down some of the players that are still now on active rosters, but the last time I saw you play was when Ginebra won, and then the conference after that, I think you got traded to Northport, and then you just got
Northport.
hurt in the semis, and you were still pretty impressive before the injury. So I think it's true that what you were saying that you could still offer something, maybe not the same amount of points or the same amount of assists, but it's a different facet of the game that you could bring to any team right now.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I appreciate that. And for sure, I'm definitely not, and that's changed. Even ever since I've been on Ginebra, my game has changed. I'm not the high scoring,
Yeah.
Saul train that everybody's used to. I kind of turned my game into a point guard that could run a team and defend the hell out the ball. So that's just something that I took pride in, and I still feel I can do that at a high level. So but I I'm a man of faith, and I trust that God has plans, and whatever it is, if the team picks me up, then cool. If not, then I know there's another door door open for me.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you still keep yourself on tip-top shape. So for example, there's an offer now and you accept it. You believe that you could also play, like for example, in the next bubble, or I don't know, there's like two conferences. For instance, someone gets you, you believe like you could be at same par of some of the players now.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like everybody is going to be a little out of shape because there's nothing like game shape. The only thing that can get you in game shape is playing games.
Yeah.
There's not an amount of workouts that you can do to keep you in game shape, actual game shape. So it would probably take me a little bit to get into game shape, but I keep myself in shape. Like I said, I work out every single day. I started got into yoga during this pandemic, something to keep myself, just spiritually, mentally, and also physically help my flexibility and stuff like that. So I've gotten into some of those things, and I do that religiously every single day. So, and that's not even just to stay ready. It's a lifestyle for me. So even if I'm not playing anymore, that's something I would be doing.
Yeah, for sure. That's really great to hear. And hopefully someone gets to sign you soon so they don't miss like the services that you could bring to their squad.
Yeah, thanks, man. I
Yeah.
hope so
So for
too.
the next part, it's really also great in our podcast to talk about the upbringing of the athletes. So for every guest I had, I also asked them about their upbringing because everyone has like events where they started and how they're able to propel themselves to what they are now, like you. So for you, you mentioned that you grew up in Sacramento, California. So how was your whole childhood, and was basketball your first love, or you were doing other things before playing ball?
Yeah, so I grew up. Basketball was the first sport that I played because I started at 4 years old. But I played three sports growing up, which was basketball, American football, and baseball.
Okay.
And really, out of all those three, basketball was the least one that was probably my least favorite. Football was my favorite for sure,
Okay.
and then baseball, and playing wise, and then basketball. I started towards as I got older. I started to have the love and the passion for basketball. But I played three sports all the way through high school, and uh, football was really something that I enjoyed playing the most. And I really thought I would play college football. But, obviously my mom thought that it would be best for me to play basketball because be less injuries
Yeah.
and less violent. but
Yeah.
so I did choose basketball, obviously, to play basketball in college. But yeah, I grew up with two older sisters. I'm the youngest in my family and the only boy. So as you can see, I had to grow up pretty fast to be like the man of the house because I had no father figure. Well,
Okay.
my dad wasn't in my life.
Mm-mm.
And that was something that for me, I look back, it was a blessing because my mom used sports to keep me around male role models in my life,
Yeah.
because my father wasn't around. So if it
Yeah.
wasn't for that, who knows if my mom would have put me in all these sports
Mm-mm.
growing up. And that was something that kind of drove me to be so good in sports and to work very, very hard. It was because I wanted to be really, really good and great because I kind of use that as a chip on my shoulder because my dad wasn't in my life. I wanted to be great to show him what he was missing out on. And eventually my dad did come back in my life as I got older in high
Oh.
school, and we developed a great relationship, and that's a whole nother story and podcast. But yeah, to make a long story short, um, that was something that really fueled me to be good, was that upbringing. And so from there, I moved, and my mom wanted a father figure in my life, so she had me move to the state of Washington, who
Oh.
my uncle lived there because he was in the military. And I think that's where I found a lot of my discipline and respect, and um, was when I went to live with my uncle. her brother, because we lived on a military base, and my uncle was a no BS kind of guy, and he put me in Taekwondo.
Oh, okay.
And in Taekwondo, that's where I learned a lot about respect and kind of controlling my anger, because I was such an angry kid because of certain things that has happened in my childhood. So I had a lot of anger, and so he put me in Taekwondo to kind of learn. That's where I learned a lot of respect and discipline, and how to channel my anger and my aggression into a sport, really. So that's why you see me, and I play very aggressive, and I play with a lot of I play with a lot of passion, and that's where it comes from. From there I went to college in Los Angeles, and that was something that I chose to do because it was a private Christian college, and I had few D1 offers, and my dream was always to go to Division I, but I used to get into a lot of trouble, and there was a guy by the name of Gus Armstead, who is he's a big time trainer where I'm from in Sacramento, but he was more like a father figure for me. And he really, really guided me and pretty much saved my life, with how he guided me. And, he thought it'd be best for me to go to a private Christian college. So that's where I went. And my first day on campus, I tried to leave. My first day on campus, my ego got in the way, and I was like, I don't belong here. I called up the college coach from Cal State San Bernardino, where Jimmy Alapag went.
Yeah, I've heard that's cool.
Yeah, Jimmy Alapag went there, and they had a full ride offer for me, and they were down the street. So I called them and asked them if they still had an offer for me, and they said yes. They told me to drive my car up to their college. The next day, I packed all my stuff and left my school and went to that school. And they showed me the campus. They got me an apartment, and they flew me back home. Because they were on a quarter system, so their school didn't start for another month and a half. So they flew me back home, and I ended up going to church that Sunday. And that guy Gus Armstead was there, and he was one of the pastors, and he started praying for me. And when he was praying for me, I could just kind of feel in my spirit that I was running away from where God wanted me to be. So with that, I called up the coach from Biola University, and I asked him. I told him, hey, I left. I felt like I didn't want to be there. I wanted to play Division I basketball. And so I asked him if he'll accept me back, and he accepted me back in open arms. And that was the best decision I ever made in my life. Was going back to that school. I met some lifelong friends. I was able to learn from one of the most winningest coaches in the history of NCAA basketball. I learned a lot off the court about myself, life lessons. And so from there, I ended up out here. You probably want to know how I ended up out here, right?
Of course, yeah.
So I used to play in these tournaments, and there was a guy by the name of Dixon, and he was friends with Charlie D.
Oh yeah.
And Micah Romero had seen me play.
Yeah.
So he wanted me to play for his team, Harbor Center.
Yeah, PBL.
Right. Yeah, PBL, because in order for us to enter the draft, we have to have like a year of residency. So we all have to play in the PBL. So Charlie D, my friend Dixon had talked to Charlie D, and they flew me out, and I ended up playing for Mike Romero's team, Harbor Center, and winning 2 championships. And from there, that's when I went into the PBA. But I never knew about the Philippines and the basketball here at all.
Yeah.
Like they just asked me out of nowhere. I was like, hey, do you want to, go to the Philippines to play basketball? And at first I said no, because I wanted to enter my name into the NBA draft and try out for that. And when that didn't work out, that's when I was like, hey, I'll take a chance and go out That was my first time ever leaving the country ever.
Okay.
So it was kind of scary. And so when I came out here, my first couple of weeks, I was ready to go home. Same thing like in college.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, you see a pattern of me always trying to run.
Yeah.
So when I got out here, it was hot. It was a culture shock. I was taking taxis and to practice to Reyes gym, practicing these hot gyms. And,
It's
it
uncomfortable.
was
Yeah.
yeah, very, very, very uncomfortable. And at that time, they didn't the guys that come out now, I tell them all the time, like, you guys have it so much better, because at that time they didn't have Grab, they didn't have any of this stuff, and so we were taking taxis. You got to sit out there on, Buendia. I'm out there. I lived in
Yeah.
Makati, sit out there on
Yeah.
Buendia trying to get a taxi, and the taxis, overcharging me because they know I'm not from here. And
Yeah.
so it was rough. And that's when I met Gabe and Jimmy Alapod. So Jimmy Alapod kind of took me under his wing, and I moved in with him. And
Oh, okay.
when I moved in with him, that's when I was able to see uh, what I had to look forward to going into the PBA. After I got done with my PBL, I had to look forward to, because I was living with the guy that was in the PBA. He was taking care of me, and I was seeing his work ethic. I was seeing what type of professional he was, and he did that for me and Gabe. So me and Gabe hung out every single day. That's how we became best friends, and we kind of held each other, kept each other sane. And that's why I always credit Jimmy and Gabe for even having a career I had, because I was really ready to go home and hang it up. And this wasn't for me, but they kept me here, and it was the best decision.
Yeah, that was terrific. Like the whole story on where you started until like how you finally got here and played for Rain or Shine. It was really a great story to hear from you. But for the next part, I wanted to ask, how did you adjust with the culture and the environment? Because you said it was tough. Like I asked like Jared Dillinger last time, and also yeah, it's like Joe and Gabe. I asked them how they adjusted with the environment and also the culture. If the culture is very different from the US and here. So when you got here, of course, you needed to like adjust and cope with the and the people and the weather that you mentioned a while ago. So how was the whole adjustment for you, and how long did it take for you to finally get the vibe and feel comfortable?
Well, for me, the culture wasn't the hard part, because I grew up with my mom's side of the family. So I grew up in the Filipino culture. I grew up with my grandma. My grandma was a big part of raising me.
Okay.
So I knew the culture through them. So that wasn't such a problem for me. What I had to adjust to was the weather and the traffic,
Oh, yeah,
and
traffic.
how
Yeah.
and how many people there are. Like everywhere you go, it's just tons of people. Tons of people, and the traffic, and it's hot. So those were some of the things that were a hard adjustment for me. Was that, but for the most part, that the culture was what I expected. Very hospitable people. There was something that was really um, awakening for me when I got here, was just how the certain things that they do here, how it carried over, and my grandmother kind of instilled those things in us. Even in the States. So it was pretty cool to see how some of the things that I grew up with having, because of the way that my grandmother was, is how it is here as well. So that was pretty cool.
What were some of the examples of those, like traditions, like Noche Buena or something, or what were some of those stuff you were referring to?
Say that again. You're breaking up.
Oh, sorry. I was it about like the traditions, like Noche Buena, or like us eating a lot of food? What were some of the stuff that your grandma taught you that you were referring to?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up eating with my hands.
Oh,
So
okay.
like
Yeah,
coming out here and seeing people, being able to have the boodle fight and all that. I'm like,
oh,
I
okay.
grew up doing this, so
Yeah,
some of those things is pretty cool. Like I was thinking, this was just us, but it's really just a culture. You don't realize that
okay.
this is because of my grandmother's culture,
Yeah,
my grandmother and my mom's culture. So you thought it was just a family thing, but it's really not.
yeah. You mentioned like in the high school and college before going here to the Philippines. You mentioned you learned a lot of life lessons from, I think, Coach Gus and also in college. So, what are some of the lessons that you could share that you learned that you could still apply even now at what 36, 37 years old? You're still able to apply it, and you were able to apply also all throughout your career in the PBA.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. For me, one of the biggest things that I learned is about life and the things that's going to happen to you in life. That um, there's only so much that you can control, and what you can control is um, your perspective and your mentality towards the things that happen to you. And there's a saying that life is 90%, I mean 10% of what happens to you and 90% on how you react to it, right?
Yeah, I
so
agree.
so no matter, there's so much that's going to happen in our lives. There's so much that's happened in my life, there's so much that's happened in my career, but I can always change the outcome by the way that I look at it, my mentality and my perspective, how I approach it, how I respond to what happens to us in our life. Because we only have so much control over what happens in our life, right? There's things that are going to happen, but the one thing that we can't control is ourselves and what happens in us, and how we approach it. So that's probably one of the biggest things that I learned.
Yeah, like now in the pandemic, everyone needs to adapt to the new normal and the new hobbies and the new way to, like, for me as a student it's hard, or for the people that are in offices it's also hard for them. Everyone
Absolutely.
adjusted. Yeah, no one was able to control that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. It's something that it was all unexpected. It just happened, right? We all
yeah,
have to adjust. We all have to adjust and not cry about it, and do the things that we can do to make the best out of the situation.
that's for sure. I also tell my friends that, like, when they have difficult, they're enduring difficult times, like a day when they're really sad, I just tell them that, yeah, you need to learn how to adapt, and you can, like, be sad for a few days, but then it can't be long term, because you need to be able to do act and still achieve whatever you want to achieve for the future.
Right, for sure. I mean, there's our minds are very, very strong. That's something that I learned. Like we can create this world that we believe that we're in when we're really not in it. That's not our reality, and our perspective is really our reality. I saw uh this kid, there was a video that I seen that always sticks with me. And it's this kid that is holding on. I think it's a flood. It might be in the Philippines actually.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
it's a flood happening, right? A flood happening, and he's holding on to this branch, and it's not, it's still water, but he's like holding on to this branch, and he's like screaming and crying.
Yeah.
And his mom comes over and grabs him and places him and shows him that he could stand up in the water,
Wow.
that he doesn't need to fear, like he doesn't need to feel like he's drowning. He could
Yeah.
stand up. And then once he stood up, he looked like, oh wow. And
Yeah.
that's oftentimes us. We
Yeah.
feel like we're drowning, but really we can stand up in the water. We
Yeah.
can stand up and be better and stronger because of it.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy that the viewers would could apply in their life, because a lot of people now, like, they're having a tough time with the whole pandemic. Especially that it's been over a year already, and they're still having a tough time adjusting.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
So now we're gonna move on to the basketball part of your stay here in the Philippines. So to start things off, I wanted to ask how did you adjust with the physical play? Because I've heard a lot of um Phil-Ams or people that played abroad, when they got here, it was tough for them. I'm not sure if it's like Christian Standhardinger, because everyone likes pushing him because he's so huge, and he was trying to control his temper also, because the refs also, they allow more contact compared to other leagues in, like, in Europe or in the US. So how did you adjust with the style of play and the physicality when you were here, like on Harbor or even in Rain or Shine initially?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. It's a lot more physical here than it is in the States. And for me personally, it was a match made in heaven because, like I said, I grew up playing football and
Yeah, oh
being
yeah,
aggressive,
yeah.
and I play very physical. So for me, it was a match made in heaven. It was easy to adjust because that was like when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, like this is how I play anyway. So it was an easy adjustment, but um, I seen a lot of other people for sure. It's hard for them because it's such a different game, but it's something that you just kind of have to adjust to.
Yeah, that's really true. And I think the players eventually adjust. It just takes some time because yeah, they're not used to it. But eventually they'll get used to it. They're having fun. It's all good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How about moving on to the draft? And because now there's the issue also of Phil Amps in the draft, like the previous draft, some Phil Amps weren't able to apply because of certain requirements they were missing. I just wanted to get your take on Phil Amps, like yeah, like Jeremiah Gray, Jason Brickman. They've been wanting to apply. And do you think that the PBA should like revisit the rule, or it should still be what it is now? Because I feel they should revisit it because I don't know. I feel those players are really Filipino. It's just that there's certain requirements that they really can't produce.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, the requirements are because they really need to make sure that you know we're Filipino that are coming from
Mm-hmm.
America. There has been cases where there was Phil Shams, right?
Yeah, early two
So
thousands. The time.
right. So,
Yeah.
but I do believe and agree with you that that should be revisited because there are kids that are Filipino and there's some paperwork that they can't produce, but they can produce to show that they are Filipino, whether that's birth certificate or whatever it is. And um, for me, I think that just benefits the league because now the competition becomes better. And another rule I feel like should be visited is the 5 Phil Lamb rule
That
per
one. Yeah.
team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because honestly, like if we're all Filipino and some of us like me and Gabe, we've represented the country.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We've represented the country. There's no 5 Phil Lamb rule from representing our country, right? When
Mm-hmm.
we put that on stage. So I feel like in the league, it's kind of discriminatory, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
if that's the word, to to
Mm-hmm.
to kind of say we're different than people
Yeah.
that were born and raised here, right?
Yeah.
We're all Filipino, and I feel like if there's 6 or 7 Phil Lambs on a team, it still should be okay,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It's kind of tough. Like I feel when there are trades, you need to trade one of your Philams. If you have five already and you're gonna get one, you need to get rid of one of them. I feel that's kind of off also. And I don't know. I
Right.
don't.
That's
Yeah, go
Go ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I
I,
feel
I was
that's
just gonna say. I'm
yeah.
sorry. I was just
Okay.
gonna say it's one of the things, even for me,
Yeah.
there's been a couple coaches that have
Yeah.
asked me. They literally asked that question: Can I play as a local? And it's like I can't, because there are teams that already have 5 Phil Lambs, but they want to get me, but it would put them over the Phil Lamb limit, So it definitely puts a hindrance in some of our position.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. Like I think I don't know what team. There was a team before that had a lot and they needed to get rid. Maybe Talk and Text in the early 2010s. I think they had sila Jimmy, Harvey. That's why they almost reached the limit or they kept reaching the limit and they couldn't get other new Philams. And yeah, they should revisit
Yeah,
the rule maybe. I don't know what rule they should put, but I think they should just revisit it. So
for sure. I agree with you.
you mentioned that also you played for the national team, but you were always ineligible, I believe, to play for Gilas in the
FIBA.
FIBA tournaments. And Noli Iyala, he also had a podcast episode like last Saturday, and they talked about it with the FIBA head on revisiting the rule of 16 years old. I believe you need to have a Philippine passport by 16 years old to play as a local. How about that rule? Do you think also that they should change it? Because, for instance, Gilas missed your services. Like you could have been a great point guard or a backup point guard if you were eligible, and you're really a legit Filipino. So, do you think also they could revisit it? Like Clarkson could play as a local, but they're not allowing him, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like they should. If we're if we're all Filipino and we want to represent our country, no matter where we come from, but that's our we should be able to. Whether we were raised in the Philippines or had our passport before 16 or not. And obviously now that they have that rule, they're they're now doing their work or due diligence to get these guys that they see in the States or whatever, to try and get them their passport before they're 16, just to see maybe if they have potential to one day represent Gilas. So, yeah, I mean, if they change that rule, I really believe that we could be one of the most competitive teams in Asia.
Yeah. Yeah, like if we get Jordan as a local, we
As a
could have
local,
like
yeah,
Ange Kwame as the center, then you have Kai because yeah, there's Filipino, and then you could like maneuver a lot with the lineups because of that rule. And there are a lot like you are only one of them, but like Chris Newsome maybe is also another guy that could have played in Gilas, and a lot of others that missed out on the chance.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So in your PBA career, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, that your best years were in Rain or Shine and Meralco, and you were really a great scorer and also a facilitator. Because there was a year I remember you were number one in the league in assists with Meralco. So in the span of I don't know what 5 to 6 years that you were like either the number one guy or the number two guy in the team, what made you unstoppable, do you believe, or like what made you hard to guard compared to the other point guards or the other guards in the league?
Mm, I would say probably just the combination of my size, strength, and speed.
Okay.
It was hard for guys to keep me out of the paint, um, and so I had a combination of speed and strength and quickness. So that was tough for teams. I wasn't always uh, I wasn't never considered a shooter, but
Yeah.
there were times where I was hitting a lot of threes, or so that would make me really hard to guard when my three was falling. Um, but I mean, that for me, that would probably be what I would say made it hard to guard.
How about the best moments of those whole years with Meralco and Rain or Shine? What would you remember? Are there like certain moments, or are there certain games or certain opponents that really you will remember in that whole time because maybe they stand up or they play better when they're against you because they know you're one of the best in the league, or you scored like 30 or 40 points against certain teams? What were the best moments for you?
Well, I mean, it's always fun to play against Ginebra, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Playing against JJ and Mark, because me and Gabe were supposed to be known as the next,
Yeah.
Fast and
Yeah.
Furious duo backcourt. So it was always fun to go against those guys. And I think we had a playoff series with them as well, and I ended up pulling my hamstring
Oh, yeah. Unfortunate.
against them. So yeah, I wasn't able to play, but I feel like we could have won that series. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely good memories. And I when I scored 45
Wow.
against Pure Foods at the time, and that was the time that Coach Ryan Gregorio was talking about me, and we were kind of going at it. So those were good times, and playing
Mm-hmm.
against James Yap and then. But yeah, I think for me those years playing with my best friend Gabe was amazing through the years that we had. We always talk about how if social media was big back then, when we were with Rain or Shine, because we were doing stuff as rookies in our second year
Yeah,
that
I remember.
people aren't doing.
Yeah.
We're throwing oops,
Yeah.
off the
Yeah.
backboard. Me and him were
Yeah.
like number one and two in free throws made in the whole league. We were always top five in scoring and assists, me and him. So, and this is, us as rookies and sophomore year. So um, we felt like if social media was big back then, we might have a bigger name than what we do now.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, those years were fun uh, because I had a lot of freedom to just kind of play my game and go out there, and I knew I had a lot of responsibility to kind of lead the team. But my favorite years were obviously with Ginebra. Those were my
Oh, okay.
best years, my most uh, memorable years, in my opinion.
Yeah. So before going on to the Ginebra years, I researched before this episode that you had a lot of trades before that. So you were in Meralco, and then you went to Global Port, and then San Miguel, and then Global Port again, and then Barako Bull. So how was it for you also mentally, because it's hard to keep switching teams in the span of a short span of time. Yeah, then new system, new teammates, and you kind of think sometimes that, do these teams want me? Why do they keep giving me away? And for you, was it more of that thinking, or was it also really hard in order to accept the fact that you kept getting traded?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. People don't understand. We play basketball. We are human beings.
Yeah.
We have feelings, and you know, there's certain things that happen, off the court or inside of us that affect us. And so my first year, the first time I got traded, a lot of people don't know this. The first time I got traded, I requested that.
Oh, okay.
I asked to be traded. That was when Coach Kaloy, my first coach, had got replaced with Coach Yang.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't. And at that time, I had a run in with Coach Yang, and I didn't
Yeah,
want
I
to go through
remember
Coach
that.
Yang.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had requested to be traded from them. And with Morocco, that was the most surprising,
Okay.
besides probably the Ginebra trade. But
Okay.
that was the most surprising because I got traded right after I just led the league in scoring and
Yeah.
assists.
Yeah, that's the year I
So
remember. Yeah.
yeah, I just led the league in scoring and assists. First time it happened in a
A lot.
bunch of years.
Yeah.
And then I got traded that following conference. And so I felt like it was personal because me and Coach Ryan, we
Yeah.
always didn't see eye to eye. I was young then and had a lot to learn. And so when I got traded to Global Port, those were fun years. That's where I had probably the most freedom, was there at Global
Okay.
Port, and was playing with Japeth, and it was fun to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, then I played with Jay Wash and Willie Miller, Gary
Yeah.
DeVid. That squad was pretty fun. I was able to play with Terrence Romeo his rookie year and all that. So, I've had some great experiences through these trades, and I always told myself, like, going through these trades is a blessing for me because I get to play with for all these different coaches and learn something from each and every single one. A lot of people play for the same coach their whole career, and so you're kind of stuck in this bubble of how that coach's culture is. But for me, I played for a bunch of coaches because of these trades, and I was able to learn from each and every one something different. I've learned from the best coach in the league, and the most winningest coach in the league, which is Tim Cohn. And I've learned from Richie Tixon, which was a first year coach, and
Mm-hmm.
Coach Kaloy was a new coach
Yeah.
when I played for him. So I've been on both sides of the spectrum. I've played for old school guys like Coach Pito
Mm-hmm.
and Coy Banal, and
Yeah.
so it's really a blessing, in my opinion, to have been played for all those teams and been a part of each and every one of those cultures. And I always told myself, like when I was at Ginebra, that it was all worth it, to go through all that journey to end up at Ginebra and win those championships with them after how many years that they've been from winning the championship, and I was part of those teams. It was all worth it to get there. So um, it's all part of the journey and all part of the part of life, you know, that I consider my career.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. That's like a optimistic view of why you're getting traded, and you're absorbing all the knowledge that you can, and also you apply it in your future stints with like Ginebra, as you mentioned, because others, they might like be sad about it for so long, or they overthink it. But then for you, at least now you have like a matured perspective on how you accepted the trades, even if there were a pretty a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're playing basketball.
Yeah.
This is a game that we would pay to play. We're getting paid to play it. So, how much can you really complain? And for doing something you love for a living. And yeah, it affects you because you start to think like, man, am I not as good as I think? These coaches
Mhm.
don't like me. Like, but for me, it caused me to grow. It caused me to really look inside, like, what is it about me that I need to change, and become not just a better basketball player, but a better person, somebody that people want to be around. So that's just what it did for me.
Yeah. How about the outside noise? Because you mentioned in social media it started increasing. Maybe the tiers you were getting traded, people were using Twitter more. People have a lot more say on like all these rumors or accusations on why you get traded. So for you personally, how did you not mind it? Like you don't mind the tweets or the media that says, "Oh, he got traded because of this, that." So how did you do it personally?
That stuff doesn't affect me. I know what I bring to the table. I know what my peers think of me, and my coaches, and that's what's most important. Is my circle. I keep it very, very tight, and what's around me, and those people that don't know me and don't know where I came from and what I've been through, their opinion doesn't matter to me. So, and that's just
Okay.
where it was. That's the approach I've always taken, and at certain times, like, you create a fan base, and yeah, it hurts when they say things that isn't that aren't true,
Mm-hmm.
because we all want to be liked, right? We all want to be liked. There's certain people that like to be the villain, but for me, you want to be liked for who you are, as the basketball player and as a person. So when they say things that aren't true, or speculate, or assume that things are happening for a reason that's not true, yeah, it hurts, but you got to kind of just take it with a grain of salt, and understand that it is a business. There's people that are more important to a franchise than I was, that are getting traded. So if they can get traded, then why can't I? And that's just how I looked at it.
Yeah, that's a great approach again on how you did it, because others, social media takes a heavy toll on them whenever they read their mentions on Twitter or even like their DMs on Instagram. But for you, at least, even if a lot of the media or a lot of the fans criticize you because of the trades and the speculations of people, you don't make it affect your game and your personality off the court as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those people just, they're bored.
Yeah.
Just look
Sometimes
at it
they
that way.
regret it because I mentioned to Justin Chua when I had him here, and he replied to one of the bashers like sorry or something. I'm not that good or something like that. And then the guy PM'd him and then said sorry. Like his emotions were high, but he didn't really mean what he tweeted.
Yeah, I've had those run-ins as well. I've had those occasions happen a lot, where they just want attention, and when
Yeah.
you come at them and they see that, hey, this guy is actually seeing what I'm saying, or he's actually it's actually affecting him in some way. They kind of look at themselves like, wow, that's not really what I meant. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people, they put things, they don't think that you're reachable.
Yeah.
And so when you are reachable, they kind of want to pull it back and be like, no,
Mhm.
I actually want to be your friend. I'm actually a fan.
Yeah.
I've had those occasions
Yeah.
a few times.
Yeah, I find that entertaining, but then it's funny that they realize it eventually because it's really just the emotions during the game. They're passionate also as fans.
For sure.
Yeah. And now we move on to the Ginebra stint that you've been talking about a lot. And you mentioned that it's like a Spurs-like system in one of the articles before, and you mentioned it's like your home. So how was the first few years before even winning the championship, or maybe the first few months with Ginebra? How did they accept you to the team? What was like your role, and how was it? How was the whole experience?
Well, when I first got there, I played for Coach Frankie Lim.
Okay.
So that's who I played for my first, I think, conference or two conferences. I played for him. And obviously, it was a different system and a different culture when Coach Tim came in. But it was great playing for Coach Frankie Lim. I liked him a lot. He's a great guy off the court, and on the court, he demands a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the biggest thing, obviously, everybody knows that Coach Tim creates a family culture and a business-like approach to the game, right? But for me, it's the fans. The fan love that you get and how much they truly care, and you see how it affects them when you don't win. And I feel like they love you so much that you have a responsibility to them to play your best and play your hardest every single game, because it affects them that much. Like, it really, people are inspired by Ginebra to do better in school, to have a better life. Like, some people sleep better or aren't depressed. Like, there's actually diehard fans when it comes to Ginebra like that. So what it did for me was, like, it made me work harder, because I felt like I owed it to them to play my ass off every single night for them, and obviously for your team as well. But it was, they gave you the fans just give you that extra push. And that's what it was for me at Ginebra. It was just the fans and their love for who you are as a player and what you do for them is second to none. It
What
really
was
is.
what was the best encounter or like interaction you had with the Ginebra fan then, since you speak highly of them? I'm a personally Ginebra fan also. But for you, did you like talk to them and you were very inspired, or to hear what they were gonna tell you? Was there any moment like that that you could share?
I mean, there's not just any specific moment. Obviously, we've had people come to our practices every single day, and they bring us stuff, and just to show their support. And I've met some, some great friends, actually, fans that became friends through just playing for Ginebra. But there's not one specific moment I could say that I had an interaction with a fan, but overall, just the interaction that they give you, and I'm very active. You can ask anybody, any other fans. Like, I love to reply to people that come and support me. If they tweet me, I'm going to try and go through every single message on my DMs, on Instagram. When we won the championship, I try to respond to every single one that said congrats. I try to at least like their comment, whatever it was. I try to let them know that they're seen, that their support is seen. And that's just who I've always been. And so you doing that, you see how much the interaction and the support is from these fans.
Yeah, that's what also impressed me, as like when I was like checking, what team will I cheer for. It's more of, that's what I liked about the Ginebra fans. They're very passionate. I mean, there are some that go over the line. I've also heard stories even like before in the 70s, 80s. But in general, the passion that they have for Ginebra is really amazing. That's why I also am like that. And there are a lot of stories, yeah, fans, even like women that don't, I mean, women are like, most of the fans are like men, but the women also. When I think one of the guests in 2OT, the podcast of Magoo and Carlo, one of the guests there during fan night, he was like a diehard Ginebra fan, and she just wanted to talk about Ginebra in their podcast. And I really love the stuff she said about the whole team. And that's why I'm never gonna like change teams in the PBA.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
You guys are just super invested, and
Mhm.
that's great. That's great.
Yeah. So with the Coach Tim insertion to the Ginebra culture, and then you finally won with Justin. What was the breakthrough moment for you when you finally thought to yourself that, oh, we can win the ring now, we can win the championships, we can win multiple championships? What was that moment for you?
Um, for me, when the first one, once you get that first one, you see what it takes, right? You see like what it takes in the formula that Coach Tim kind of puts in front of us, and that's with his philosophy and his culture that he creates with the team, and it just rubs off, and you start to see guys buy into that. And when you see people start to buy into that and into what he's teaching, um, then you can see us just take off, and um, that's why when guys go out, it's really a culture. You could plug in the next guy, and it's kind of like the Spurs, next guy up, next man up mentality, and um, it's once you get that first one and you see what it takes, it's always harder to get another one. So you have to bring it to another level, and so that after that first one, uh, I started to see that if we just kind of kept our team together and guys kept buying into what we were doing, and that was, all five guys working together, that there wasn't just one man on the team, and buying into that on both ends of the floor, offensively and defensively. You saw that that was just something that could win multiple championships. And that was Coach Tim's message from day one. He's not here. He wasn't there to win one championship. He's there to win multiple championships. And that's just what we bought into.
Yeah. Was that also the one of the reasons why you became a defensive stopper, and like the finals against Meralco, you guard Alan Durham, and even in the previous series, like semis and quarterfinals, you usually guard one of the best scorers of the opposing team, which wasn't really your main role earlier in your career. Was it more of Coach Tim, because you said it's infectious, like his when he imparts his system and what he wants from you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking for ways for me to stay on the court, and we had so many great scorers. And so I felt like my role in order to be on the court, and Coach Tim came up to me. He came up to me, literally came up to me one day and was like, hey, what you possess offensively, which is strength, speed, and quickness, the combination, that could be used on the defensive end to be the best defender in the league. And so I just kind of took pride in that and being an elite defender, and wanted to take on the challenge of being a shutdown guy, of taking on whoever their best player was, whether it was Elijah Millsap, the imports, or whatever it was. I took on that challenge, and I wanted to be the best at it, and I've always been that way. Whatever I'm doing, I want to be the best in it. And so I took that mentality of wanting to be an elite defender, because Coach Tim believed in me that I could do that, and show him that he was right. And so I bought into his philosophies and what he wanted out of me, and we handled it.
Yeah, I like the focus that you had, because some of the offensive players, like pretend you were excelling a lot offensively. Maybe some players, even abroad, they might not even, like, if a coach tells them to just focus on defense rather than offense because there's a ton of scores in the team, sometimes their ego gets to them. They'll be like, nah, I can outshine him even if he's a 17 point per game scorer or something. But for you, you were able to accept the role. And I love that attitude that other players or other people that are going to listen to it may emulate also in their own hobbies or craft.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been there, done that. I've scored all these points, led the league in scoring assists, and it didn't win championships. And so I just wanted to win that bad, that much, that I wanted to win. And who am I to tell the most winningest coach in the PBA history, no, what he wants out of me isn't right? That's just stupid. So I bought into what he wanted, because I knew that he came there to win championships, and if he thought me being that was going to help us win championship, and he was right. So I'm glad that I listened, and like you said, my ego didn't get in the way, because I really did want to win that bad.
Yeah. How about since you were like already aging at this time, and you already were receiving multiple injuries, and I was checking articles that sometimes you'd be questionable or you wouldn't play on games that maybe they could afford to win without you, but in the playoffs, that was when you'd elevate your minutes, and also your play would also be impactful to the series. So how did you have that? First, the injuries, how did you overcome it, even if there were multiple already, a ton of it? And how did you have the mentality to be present and have the impact in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, injuries suck. There's really no control over that. You just kind of try and take care of your body and strengthen certain muscles. But I've had some pretty freak accident injuries, the one that I remember against Morocco, where I got that block, at the end of the game. And when I came down, I just, hit the backboard, and I came down and twisted my ankle. I was in the finals, and that one really, really hurt me, because I wanted to play in, those final games. But, in the playoffs, Coach Tim always shrinks his minutes and his rotation. Yeah. And so during the regular season, he gives a lot of guys minutes, and what your minutes is going to be shared. But once he narrows down his rotation in the playoffs to 7-8 guys, and you're one of those, that's when you got to step up and do your job at an elite level. And so I always look forward to that. I always look forward to the big games, the big moments. That was something I never shied away from, and trying to perform in those times. take advantage of those opportunities that we had.
Yeah. How about from the three championships? What would you say distinguished it from each of it? Like what was different from the first and the second and the third?
Each of them had their own challenges, you know, they all had different challenges. We always went through different things each different season, you know, whether that was we won one championship without Greg. You know, we had to deal with not having Greg, and then the next championship he came back, and you know, we wanted to, you know, get the monkey off our back. Always winning that first one is tough to do, you know, and so each championship was different. I think we had two championships against Morocco and one against San Miguel, and that one against San Miguel was sweet. You know, it's different when you're playing against, you know, big brother.
Yeah.
So they all have their different challenges and all, you know, rewarding in different ways.
Yeah, the San Miguel one was great because Justin played in the Commissioner's Cup. He was an undersized import, and you guys still won.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
because
big.
you guys had the height already. So why would Coach Tim look for an import that's taller if Justin could play there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now teams have to match up with us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And, okay, so now here's like the unfortunate part that you mentioned a while ago, that Ginebra trade was the worst for you. So what was the story, like the day you found out? And like did they tell you days before that you might get traded, or did you find out through social media? And how did you recover from it?
So I was playing well that conference,
Mm-hmm.
really, really well. And you know, obviously I felt like we were going to win another championship that conference. And I just got, did I get player of the game? I might have got player of the game against Morocco or San Miguel or something like that the game before. And we had a day off. And I get a phone call from Coach Tim. I'm like, why is he calling me? He calls me, and I already knew. I could tell in his voice, you know, when he says, I have some tough news to tell you. I already knew.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just went blank. I really did. I just kind of went numb and blacked out and really didn't hear anything he said. And so it was tough because I felt, you know, I was one of the leaders of the team.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people don't know this, but I was, you know, one of the captains, so to speak, of the team. You know, I wasn't just one of the, you know, I didn't feel like I was just someone that you just trade. You know, I felt like I felt really important to the team. And I had to understand that in order to get something like a Stanley Pringle, you would have to trade something like me, you know?
Yeah.
Like you're not just going to trade anybody else, you know, to get a guy. And I had to understand like this was a business, and they had an opportunity to get, for me, the best point guard in the whole league, you know, one of the best players in the whole league in Stanley Pringle. So I couldn't take it personal, but that didn't come till later, you know, because it really hurt me. Even when I was on Northport, it was hard for me because I created such strong friendships and I saw those guys as family. I was still rooting for them. Even when I was on Northport, you know, I still wanted them to win the championship.
You
because
played
those were
them
my
in the
brothers.
semis, right?
Yeah, those were my brothers. You know, I wanted them to win. And so it was hard for me because I still cared about them, and the fans were tremendous. You know, they showed so much love, and I think I posted something like, I wasn't going to say anything on social media, but then I just started getting an influx of all the fan support of saying how much they appreciated me and loved me. So I just felt like I owed them a message, you know, and so that's why I posted something when I got traded. But you know, even then, you know, I now realize through that you know, there are certain things that happen. I actually talked to Coach Tim. I would say maybe a month ago or 3 weeks ago, actually. Maybe it was sooner than even a month ago. And, you know, we talked about the trade and what he was going through. And, you know, he told me that, you know, he did regret trading me. And, you know, he was watching film to get ready to teach the rookies of their execution and stuff like that. He was telling me that A lot of times he always thought that LA was the guy that came down and always got us into something. And he said when he's watching this film to show the rookies, that he just messaged me out of nowhere. That's how we got a phone call. He was like, I had no idea that you were the one coming down trying to execute every single time. You know, you were the one getting us into our sets. He was like, I always knew that you were our best defender and elite defender, and you brought that to the table, but I didn't realize how important you were, you know, and that kind of feels good, you know, to hear that from someone you respect and the coach, like Coach Tim. But yeah, I mean, that will always be tough for me because I feel like I could have been a part of those championships that they won even after I left, you know. I feel like I still could have contributed to that and been a part of that.
So going back to your point, you mentioned that Coach Tim was called you recently, and yeah, you could have been a major part of the whole championship run. Like you were one of the major rotational players. Like if they play small ball, like with Scotty and LA, you could play the 3 or the 2, like those kinds of things. And yeah, you mentioned that you were the one bringing down the ball in some of the plays that Coach Tim was running. And for me, yeah, in Northport and Phoenix, it was unfortunate that you weren't able to like flourish under their system. So for those 2 stints, for like what, you're already your 3rd time in Northport. How was those 2 stints with Northport and Phoenix before? Yeah, so unfortunately, no one has signed you yet after that.
Well, I never played for Phoenix.
Okay.
Never got the opportunity to play for them. But Northport, like I said, it was hard for me because I was still kind of hurt from the trade and still invested with Ginebra. And that's one of the things I do regret. I don't regret many things, but I do wish I took the opportunity to be a little more present when I was there, which I wasn't. And so I actually had talked to Coach Pideaux and apologized for, you know, not being as present as I could have been and helping out those young guys and helping them out a little more. It was more so on me, not on them. So, yeah, I mean, you live and learn through those situations, and I'm sure that will happen again in the future, and I'll be better because of it. But yeah, Phoenix, I never played for them. Once I was traded to them, we couldn't come to terms on a contract. So I asked them to release me, and they were able to release me.
Yeah, going back,
and that was before the pandemic hit. That was before the pandemic hit. If I'd have known that the pandemic was going to hit, I would have just signed. Yeah, I would have just signed and like, yeah.
Yeah, that was a missed opportunity. And like in the bubble, Phoenix could have used a point guard and their semifinals run.
Yeah, for sure. That would have been pretty cool to play for them during that time.
Matthew Wright, you're gonna pass it to him. It's like sure ball threes.
Yeah.
But then going back to Coach Tim, it's like you really loved him. It's like he's your favorite coach ever. Like it sounds like he is. But what was the best advices that he gave you all throughout your stay in Ginebra that you will never forget, and you know you could still maybe use it in your if you're still signed or in your other business ventures, as you mentioned?
Well, Coach Tim he's a guy that he is a chemistry coach, you know, and he uses the game of basketball to teach life lessons through the game of basketball. And that's how he is. And he shows you that he cares about you, not as a basketball player. He cares about you off the court as well, you know? And so that really stuck with me. Obviously coming from somebody that, you know, my backstory, I never had a father figure, you know, so for somebody that is that instrumental in my life to care about me meant a lot to me. And so one of the things that I did learn from him is, and this is also carries into my life as well, is he would always tell me, Solomon, use your total game. Don't limit yourself. You have so much talent and skills, but don't just use it for what you feel like you're good in. You know, you can be great at everything, you know, and that was something for me, obviously on the defensive end, a rebounder, you know, something being being a better teammate, setting better screens, being a complete player. That's what he wanted me to be, was a complete player. He didn't want me to just be a scorer. He didn't want me to just be a guy known that could get to the lane and was strong and could penetrate. He wanted me to be known as a complete total package player. And that was something that he always desired out of me. And not just as a player, but a complete man, something that, being approachable, being someone that puts smiles on people's faces and impacts people that he comes in contact with. And that's just what he has taught me. That would be the thing of just being a complete person and a complete player.
Yeah, that's the perfect advice that you could also tell other people. Like, it doesn't need to be basketball only or athlete. Like, even with your other careers, you could say that you could, capitalize on every opportunity. If you could succeed in this level, don't just focus on the other side. You could focus on every side that you could succeed in or flourish in. And that's really great advice from Coach Tim. And I'm pretty sure you're gonna apply it, with your future and all what lies ahead in your life, even if it's not in the PBA.
Absolutely, man. You can always contribute to somebody's life, and always be better and grow individually as a person and as a player. There's always room for growth.
Yeah, definitely. So how old are you? Like 36 or 37, right? Years old.
Just turned 37.
Okay, 37 years old, and it's towards the tail end of your career. But for you personally, what keeps you motivated? Like, I asked Joe this also because he already has a lot of championships and accolades, but he still doesn't want to retire. He still wants to prove something to the fans and to his teammates or his family or friends. For you personally, what do you still want to prove, or that's why you still want to play? And how do you tell the people that you're ready for the opportunity and you will succeed at it?
Well, what keeps me motivated is the game has given me so much. Like, I've experienced so much and done so much through the game of basketball. And so I want to give back as much as I can, and I still feel, like I said in the beginning, I still feel like I have so much more to give to the game, and I would be shortchanging it if I walk away now, and I'm, like I said, I'm not in control of the circumstances if somebody picks me up or if not, but I just know that my heart is still there, and I can offer and give back to the game so much more of what I've learned from it.
Okay, so for the last part of the podcast, and I also ask these questions to all my guests. It's also like a traditional questions. So for the first one, I asked them about athletes being socially and politically active, like in the bubble in the NBA. The NBA players, they were very vocal about the issues with the George Floyd and the elections, like Biden winning. They were very like teaching people how to vote, educating them on how to register. And here in the Philippines, I feel not all the athletes, maybe they don't realize like the following that they have, that they could influence like the social and political issues here. Like for instance, during the George Floyd, I think some of the PBA players, I'm not sure if you were part, they did like an Instagram live so people will learn about it. And those are some of the examples. Or like in the elections in 2022, if like athletes teach people how to vote or encourage people how to vote or know the platforms of the candidates, for instance. And so do you think that Filipino athletes could be more socially active, or they could actually have a voice in changing life here in the Philippines?
Yeah, I mean, for me, we are given this platform for a reason, and I feel like we have a responsibility, and the platform can be used in a lot of different ways. It could be used in a positive way, and it could be used in a negative way, and it's up to you on how you want to approach that. But it's not everything for me, because I don't like to judge somebody based off of their social media. You know what I'm saying? Because for me, somebody could not be doing something on social media, but be doing it in real life. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of things that some people do just for social media, but not
Yeah.
really do it in real life.
That's worse. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean it goes both ways. And so for me, I just feel like if you have the platform as an athlete, use it in ways that you can, not just a platform, but even um you as a person, use that, because people are inspired by you, and people are inspired by us and who we are. So I feel like we have a responsibility to kind of pay it forward and give them uh, the inspiration that they're looking for. And yeah, we're human beings and we're going to make mistakes, but even in those mistakes, we could show them something through that, and so this is something that comes with a responsibility, and I feel like it should be upheld in a way that is comfortable, because at the end of the day, like, we all go through certain things too. Sometimes people aren't comfortable. Even when they're an athlete, they're not comfortable with doing certain things. Maybe they do things, like I said, off social media. So for me, it's all about where your heart is and what you're comfortable doing.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway there is maybe also the Filipinos are when the way their upbringing and the culture, like they're not as vocal compared to the people in the US, but it doesn't mean that they don't do anything anymore or they're unknowledgeable or uneducated about the issues. Maybe they do it.
Right.
Like there are some people that were helping the frontliners, but they didn't need to post it on social media. They were just doing it. So maybe that you could use that analogy also in the issues. Like what if they're doing their own way of educating the Filipinos? You never know.
Right.
Yeah. So for
Absolutely.
for the next question, it's from the all the smoke podcast. They ask their guests if there are five dinner guests dead or alive, who would you choose? Like it doesn't need to be sports only. It
Say
can
it
be
again. Say it
anyone.
again.
If there are five dinner guests dead or alive, who would you choose? And it doesn't need to be athletes only or sporting media people. It can be anyone.
Five dinner guests,
Yeah.
dead or alive,
Yeah.
or what?
Yeah.
Huh. Um, LeBron James. I'm
Yeah.
a huge LeBron
Yeah.
James fan.
Yeah.
Um, my dad.
Okay.
My dad. Um, I would say Allen Iverson.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm a huge Allen Iverson fan. He's actually my favorite player. He's the reason why I wear number three.
Yeah. Your playing style
Allen
is like
Iverson.
him also, like scorer. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I got two more.
Mm-hmm.
I would say my mom
Mm-hmm.
and Jesus.
Okay. Yeah. That's a great list. That's a great list. You're gonna really get a lot from the 2 to 3 hours of dinner with those people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for the last question, I also asked my guesties this question, and it's really a great one also for me. Is who should I invite here on the DVD show? I've mentioned some of the people I've invited previously, and maybe you could suggest other athletes. It doesn't need to be basketball, but yeah, basketball of course is your sport. And who could you suggest that would be G or that has a good story on guesting here on the pod?
Hmm. Let me think. Everyone I'm thinking of has been on already. How about Coach Tim?
Oh yeah, I haven't had him.
Coach Tim.
Okay.
I would say Coach Tim.
Okay. So that's a great one. Hopefully I get him. But then maybe not now because they're preparing for the bubble.
Yeah. Let me know. I
Yeah.
can vouch for you.
Okay, okay. I'll message you. Okay. So that's it. That's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you so much, Saul, for joining me here on the DVD show.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for having me.
it was a great episode. There was a lot of lessons and wonderful things that the audience and because myself, I already learned a lot from it in this whole like 1 hour plus that we had. And I hope you could continue inspiring people. Like you said, you love the fans so much, and you have a ton of fans, even if you're not playing anymore right now. But you still inspire a lot of people, like Ginebra fans, I'm pretty sure they still love you. They still message you.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah. Do you have any final thoughts before you go?
Um, no, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day to have me on
Yeah.
and asking me to be on this show. It's been an honor. It's been fun. Anytime I get the opportunity to kind of share my story and spread a positive message, I'm all about it. So yeah, man. Uh, Continue to give people a platform to share their story and be inspiring to other people. Good job on that, and spread love, man.
Yeah. Thank you again. And before you go, is it okay if we take a picture?
Of course.
Okay, I'll take it from here.
All right, let me
One,
know.
yeah, one, two, three. Okay, thank you again, Saul, for joining me here
All right,
on
brother.
the DVD
Thanks a
show.
lot, man.
Thank you.
Have
And
a good
I'll
night.
tag you when I post the episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Peace.